Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm reading Long Nights in the Valley. Yeah, this is by Marsalias. I so butchered that name. Anyways, yeah, it's by them. This is 18 chapters with 81,000 words and 240. This is part of a series, but the series hasn't been updated, so far there's only one part. The ending was okay. It didn't satisfy my needs, but maybe I enjoyed the fan fiction and the journey it brought me, so I'm gonna read it anyways. Here's the summary. On paper, the Hero Commission's plan to investigate Midoriya Izuku under the guise of a training course for combating mental quirks is solid, foolproof even. If Midoriya turns out to be the innocent, they can pass everything off as part of the training exercise, assuming he remembers any of it. Otherwise, they could beg forgiveness after the traitor was securely imprisoned in Tartarus. The paper plan failed to take into account the feral ghosts living in Midoriya Izuku's head or his equally feral living friends. Time to bring on the chaos. Chapter 1. You shouldn't be here. He stood on top of the stairs to the beach, looking down on them with the sun rising behind them. His pupils were pinpoints, his irises shockingly bright. He wore a thin windbreaker over a t-shirt that read tracksuit, and a pair of sweatshirts with his signature red shoes. His expression was strangely flat and blank. He had never looked at them like that before. Deku? Said Ochako, uncertainly, taking a step forward, her hand half raised as though she could reach him, despite being so far away. The commission instructor flung out an arm, stopping her. He was staring up at the boy, too, his eyes blown wide, lips pulled back with something like worry, something like fear, and something like averse. Whatever that is, he said, it isn't Midoriya Izuku. Aizawa reviewed the program the commission had sent to him, ignoring the gentle bumping of the bus and the barely contained chaos of the students around him. It looked very straightforward, all things considered. The requirement was new, but Aizawa felt it was illogical to test students like this when they could simply have the mental hero added to the course load. But overall, he'd seen worse. So why did this bother him so much? He scanned the paperwork again. He was going to be getting the same certification as his students, had arranged to be part of the same general cohort, even because he didn't trust them on their own, at all, ever. But that shouldn't be an issue. Even when they did get split up, they'd be going in groups of 5 and, there it was, groups of 5, with any odd numbers being used to fill out other groups who were undergoing testing on the same day, most of whom were adult heroes, if he recalled correctly. With the addition of Aizawa, there were 21 of them. Calling on years of experience, Aizawa didn't groan. The thing was, Aizawa knew, even before arriving and having numbers and groups assigned, who the odd one out would be. There was only one student who could be so problematic without trying or indeed having any control over the variables that went into causing the problem. Midoriya. Aizawa almost suspected that Midoriya had some secret trouble-attracting quirk on top of the lightning-splitting, bone-breaking insanity and the randomly appearing eardrift, abomination, tentacle things. It would fit right in. Sadly, Midoriya's ability to find trouble didn't seem to go away when Aizawa stared at him, so he had to acknowledge that the kid was just that unlucky. If Aizawa let Midoriya go off to complete the course on his own, he would probably discover that, Pro Hero Wash was laundering money for an overseas smuggling operation disguised as an environmental cleanup charity, or somehow locate a villain despite being at a secure Hero Commission building, like he had during the provisional license exam, or break a bone again, or discover a previously unknown aspect of his pork again, or get into a fight with Bakugo again. No way, not if Aizawa had anything to say about it. Izuku bounced in place, excited. He was attending a professional development course given by the Hero Standards and Practices Commission. It was like a dream come true. Literally, he dreamt about this. Of course, he'd had the dream when he was 7, and he just learned about the HSPC and what it did, and Almay had been the course teacher, which he wasn't going to be for this course, and which was also a little redundant because Almay, Mr. Yagi Toshinori 8, was already his teacher. And the reason behind this course and making everyone with any kind of hero license ticket was a bit disturbing, and he'd had to opt out of some of the course features because reasons. But regardless, Midoriya, said Jiro, tapping on his shoulder, they're calling for you. Oh, thanks, said Izuku, nodding viciously, and man, he really had to cut his hair soon. It was getting long enough to fall in his eyes when he did that, and that would be distracting in the field. Good thing it wouldn't matter for today. They weren't going to be doing anything physical after all. He walked up to the table, showed the person with the clipboard his provisional license. He could still hardly believe he had it. It was so cool. He received a card with a number on it. Pin that to your shirt, said the man, hardly looking at him. At least the man was trying to look like he was hardly looking at him. Maybe he recognized him from the sports festival and didn't want to make things awkward, but it had been a while since the sports festival. They tended to drain from calming memory pretty quickly, and oh no, he'd been holding up the line. He sketched a quick bow and ran over to where the rest of his classmates and teachers were waiting. So, said Aizawa, looking as exhausted as ever. There was a spark of something in the man's eyes. Vigilance. Had he noticed something immense? Should Izuku be on alert as well? We have conceived sensitive numbers, so most of us should be together in the same groups. Problem child. Izuku jumped to attention. Yes, sir. It was kind of sad that he answered to the name Problem Child, wasn't it? Was it sadder that he almost liked the nickname? It was nicer than what some of his other teachers had called him. It didn't have the same bite. Trade numbers with Yayuozu. Izuku blinked and looked at Yayuozu in surprise. He said, okay. He unpinned his card and held it out to his classmate. Yayuozu took it carefully, frowning at the number. Why are you doing this, sensei? She asked. Because knowing his luck, Midoriya is gonna be the odd one out, and you're the only one I trust not to kill someone or get kidnapped if you're left on your own. Okay, harsh, but fair. What about Ida? Said Kaminari. I know what I said. Harsher. Wait, Aizawa knew about that? Since when? Didn't she go off that one time, though, at Kimono? Aizawa turned to stare at Mina, who held her hands up. Forget I said anything, sensei. No, you're right. Haraguri, you take Midoriya's number. Me? Asked the invisible girl. Yes, said Aizawa. Are you sure? I don't know if I could survive a Midoriya level calamity. Izuku felt his jaw drop a little. Was that what they were calling it now? Rude. The calamity won't happen if he isn't there. Using Aizawa. Which, okay, true, but also rude. Izuku wasn't that bad, was he? Izuku took Haguri's card. The number put him between Uraraka and Aizawa, so he'd probably be with at least one of them. On reflection, Yayuozu's number had put him on the other side of Aizawa, which probably wasn't a coincidence. The rest of the class got re-registration shortly thereafter, with several of his classmates trying to trade their own numbers. only for Ida to scold them, which was typical, really. It was almost calming, and Izuku needed calm after that. Was his luck really that bad? Now he was much more nervous than before, except before he'd been excited, and now he was really not. He fiddled with the sleeve of his uniform, trying not to pick at his scars or cross the lines into overly fidgeting and being distracting. He wished he had brought one of his grip strength training tools. At least with those, he could pretend their only purpose was working out, unlike his other fidget toys. Oh gosh, was that for Hero Rosemary, the memory hero, and Satoru, the high attitude hero? Wow, he'd been so worried he almost hadn't noticed how many amazing heroes were here. There were even some he didn't know, and then they were being called up, number by number. Harigiri, true to Aizawa's prediction, was poised with a group of confused-looking strangers, including Rosemary. Izuku was almost jealous. He'd love to learn how her quirk worked. Actually, all the people in that group were heroes with mental quirks. How interesting. Izuku would have to ask Hirokuri if they gave her any tips. He was sure they'd have different insights than the other people in their class, especially considering the subject matter of the course. The subject matter being combating mental attacks. That's why Izuku had to opt out of being a subject for the course. He didn't entirely understand it, not yet, but One for All definitely had a mental aspect, and he didn't know how or if that would show up in a simulated attack like the ones they'd been demonstrating. It was better to play it safe. His quirk was already weird enough as it was. He wasn't sure how he had managed to talk Aizawa and his classmates out of being suspicious after Blackwood came out. Most of that day was a blur. Izuku suspected that things would not have been smoothed over nearly so easily if Nezu hadn't known about One for All. He also wasn't looking forward to the reaction when the other users' quirks started coming out, even if being able to use them was going to be really cool. Anyways, his own group had resolved itself to consist of Aizawa, Uraraka, Ida, and Todoroki. He was relieved. Todoroki looked relieved too. That made sense. With what Todoroki had told Izuku about his history, he wouldn't want to be doing this with people he didn't know either. But Todoroki would have opted out anyways, right? Or did Endeavor not let him? Honestly, that would be part of the course for Endeavor. Todoroki said he was getting better, but Izuku had doubts. He liked to think that people could always be saved, even from themselves, that most villains could be reformed, even if the government didn't think so, that people like Endeavor and Kachan could see the error of their ways. But even though Kachan was better than he was before, it didn't mean that he still didn't do things that Izuku didn't like. And he couldn't imagine that Endeavor was changing faster than Kachan. Who will they have us do first, do you think? Asked Uraraka. I mean, I know they're going to go through all of us, but all of this is making me so nervous. I have a lot of embarrassing memories. I mean, I'm sure everyone does, but ugh, that didn't come out right. Well, said Ida encouragingly, if they let us volunteer, I shall go first. What? Said Izuku, surprised. You didn't opt out? Opt out? Asked Uraraka. That was an option? I mean, yes, said Izuku. I mean, I had to file a bunch of paperwork and get Mom, Alma, and Principal Nezu to sign off on it, but I mean, it's an option for people who know secrets that shouldn't be exposed, like Ida. What was he thinking? I did not know that was an option, said Ida, who had evidently now realized he was in deep, deep trouble. Izuku resolved to protect his friend's secrets as best as he was able, even if it meant he didn't get a good score in the training. I don't think there was an opt-out option either, said Todoroki. Frowning, he reached towards his face but tugged on his hair instead of touching his scar. Okay, so am I the only one that asked? Like, it wasn't easy. I had to get a bunch of signatures, but it was doable. He shrugged helplessly. I wasn't informed that there was an opt-out, said Aizawa grumpily, and a little suspiciously. Izuku cringed. He did not need his teacher to be suspicious of him. He did not need people looking into his life, into his past, into his quirk. Maybe if they couldn't keep Idas and Todoroki's secrets quiet, he could play his reluctance off as pretending to those, even if the idea made him feel incredibly guilty and unworthy of his friends. He would just have to do his best to help them. Before any more conversations could be had, the group was called into one of the rooms. A set of 6 cheap futons laid on the floor. Monitoring equipment filled one of the walls. 2 commissioned personnel, a man and a woman, were waiting for them. When the woman saw Izuku, she frowned and pulled her phone out of her pocket. What was that about? Hi, said the man, who had a rather hooked nose and very bright, almost glowing yellow eyes. I'm Ito Kenzo. I'll be your instructor for today. You can call me Ito-san. This is Sato Yumi. She will be using her quirk for today's demonstration. The woman smiled brightly, putting away her phone quickly. The way my quirk works is that I can put up to 5 people into a shared dreamscape modeled after a 6th person's mind. All 6 people will lose consciousness, and I use my quirk. And the perception of time in the dream state is usually altered, although by how much varies depending on the group. The Dreamscape presents until either I release it, the people involved break free, or 8 hours pass. However, I'll be making the rounds once an hour to pull everyone out and let you move on to the next person in the group. I'll be joining the Dreamscape with you to help point out tactics, said Ito. Although the person the Dreamscape is modeled on won't be completely aware of what's going on. The goal is to familiarize you with what it feels like to have your minds invaded in a safe, secure environment. Sato-san's quirk is similar enough to that of several known villains to be a good example of what to expect. Ito paused. Any questions? Uraraka raised her hand. Who's going first? She asked. That would be... He broke off as Sato tucked on his sleeve and showed her phone. The man did a double take, then paled slightly. He glanced at Izuku. He said, you're not supposed to be in this group. Yes, I am, said Izuku. This is my number. It matches. Ito glanced at Sato. Then his phone rang. Oops, he said, looking at his phone. Looks like I'm in the wrong group. You kids are supposed to have Sakuru-san. I was requested to be by another group. So sorry. He will be here in a minute. Ito retreated through the back door at high speed. Izuku swallowed. Something was going on behind the scenes. This wasn't about the suspected traitor thing again, was it? Izuku had thought after the training camp that it was pretty obvious that it had to be a teacher, and it couldn't be Aizawa-sensei. He had almost been killed by the Momu. Also, he was the best teacher Izuku had ever had. A new, much taller man walked through the door. Hello, he said. I'm Tsukisi Tamiko. I am your instructor. Apologies for the mix-ups. No worries, said Satu. Everyone go ahead, lie down, get comfortable. Midoriya-san, you're first. What? Said Izuku. But I opted out. I filled in the paperwork and everything. I got a signature from Abi-san and Kendall-san, and he fumbled to pull out his paperwork. He had kept copies just in case. Satu and Tsukisi didn't so much as look at it. This course doesn't have an opt-out, said Tsukisi. Excuse me, said Aizawa. He clearly has paperwork for an opt-out. Maybe you were misinformed, like you were about the room. Tsukisi shook his head. I don't know who you talked to, he said, but they were either mistaken about what course you were referring to, or you misunderstood them. But, said Izuku, Midoriya, said Aizawa. If you want to sit this out, it's fine. I can go with you so you won't be alone. No one's going to make you subject yourself to a quirk you are uncomfortable with. He can do that, said Tsukisi, but if he'll lose his provisional license, he'll have to go through recertification entirely once the next licensing exam. Hold up, said Aizawa. You're doing this course 2 more times, aren't you? I know I was given multiple options for getting the certification. Sure, said Sato, but it's still going to be my quirk. She wrapped a strand of her hair around her finger, stressed. Izuku's mind was racing. He couldn't lose his license. He couldn't lose his ability to help people. What would All Might think? He couldn't. It's fine, said the sensei. It's fine. I'd have to do this anyways, right? Might as well get it over with, huh? He walked over to one of the futons and set down his backpack, trying to hide his trembling hands. So, is there anything specific or special I have to do for your quirk to work? Nope, said Sato cheerfully. Just lie down and close your eyes. Come on, everyone lie down. Aizawa moved slowly, which was nothing short of shocking, considering how eager he usually was to curl into his sleeping bag. He put the bag down on one of the futons. You're sure there's no way for Midoriya to opt out? Positive. We're really sorry, said Sato. Illogical, grumbled Aizawa. He got into his sleeping bag nonetheless. You sure about this problem, child? I'm sure, Sensei. Plus ultra, right? He lay down, trying to get comfortable, but the panic rising in his veins really didn't allow for that. He could distantly feel One for All, and all it contained, pressing up against the back of his mind, was something like concern. He swallowed. Don't think about it. His classmates were hesitantly picking out their own spots. Ida looked like he wanted to say something. Uraka's brow was frowned, her lips pressed. Todoroki was difficult to read, as always. Suzuki was already laying down, staring at the ceiling. Izuku closed his eyes. All right, said Sato. Here we go. Yumi left the room with Midoriya Izuku in it, feeling just slightly dazed. She paused for a moment in the back hallway. She had dozens of other groups to set off, and she was running late after that little snickle. Izuku was supposed to be in the group with Tsukushi-san and 4 other specifically picked professional heroes. Heroes who would get to the bottom of why and how he had multiple quirks, who would find out who he really was, who would figure out how he was in contact with the leader villains, and why they decided to pick some random quirkless nobody. Assuming that's what Midoriya really was. The initial investigation had uncovered some discrepancies in his family records. In any case, he was not supposed to be in a group with his little friends and overprotective teacher. Oh well, except for Midoriya, they were all clean. If they were really heroes, they would do what was right. Yumi pushed off the wall, one had she started leaning on it, and stumbled. Something bright and red caught on the periphery of her vision, and she looked down. Her nose was bleeding. She licked her lips, tasting copper. It shouldn't be bleeding. That only happened when she overused her quirk. When she tried to put too many people into one dreamscape, or tried to combine 2 dreamscapes into one. She'd been pacing herself. This shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be bleeding like this. Like she had just put more than a dozen people under. Satoru Yumi promptly passed out. Wow, said Uraka, looking around in delight. She was worried about Deku. He'd looked really bad right before Satoru-san activated her quirk, and Satoru-san had been acting kinda shady, but this place was beautiful, and she couldn't help but be a little in awe. She kind of expected a dreamscape to be more mushy, maybe darker. Her dreams usually weren't very clear, except for the nightmares, and those didn't count. But Deku's dreamscape was as bright as he was, a beautiful beach and a cleansing ocean at sunrise. Or was it sunset? Either way, the sun hovered above the ocean, its light glistening off the waves. Wow, said Todoroki, approaching the breakers on the beach. He crouched, looking at the sand. It's really, he poked the sand, delicate. As expected of Midoriya, explained Ida, waving his hands. His attention to detail is unparalleled. Said Aizawa. Too bright. He put on his goggles. Excuse me, said Sukuru's. If I can have your attention, please. I apologize for the disruption. However, you shouldn't be here. So that was chapter 1. Hopefully it came out okay. Still recovering from not concussion. Maybe, I don't know what the fuck I have. I don't think it was a concussion. My head wasn't bleeding. It's probably bruised. I scraped my side, so there's that. Anyways, yeah, that was the first chapter. 18 chapters. It was honestly, it was a great story to read for me. It got me hooked. I read it all today, and I figured I'd share it with you guys. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.